Hi everyone, Meredith here. I wanted to make a quick video just to help you make sense of the feedback on your response papers. Feedback is one of the best ways for you to improve in future assignments, and these response papers are really models for the major essay and the final exam, which are worth larger percentage points than the individual response papers. So we want to help you understand what I'm talking about when I give you feedback on your response papers. All right, so let's start with this rubric. You've got a rubric at the end of your response paper, and you'll notice the response papers aren't worth as many percentage points as your major essay, but this rubric is really similar to how I will be grading your major essay. In fact, everything's pretty much the same except for the length requirement, the word count. So this is kind of getting into the groove for looking at that major essay. There's also, on your final exam, there will also be an essay question, and this is what I'll use to grade that. And so even though they're worth different percentage points, they're all out of 100 points. So on the rubric, there are 4 different areas of grading. I look at content, organization, style, and mechanics. And for content, I'm looking to make sure that your response is focused and on topic, that you're meeting that prompt that appears on Blackboard. I'm also looking for length requirements, that it shows in-depth thought and analysis of subject matter, that you aren't just kind of providing a summary of the story, but that you're actually thinking about some kind of literary element, or that you're doing, again, some kind of responding and analysis that shows that you're thinking about that story in a particular way. Now, all of our prompts aren't going to be the same, and so that kind of changes, which is why that language is a little bit vague. I'm also looking to see that your research is effectively incorporated and documented. For the organization of your essay, I'm looking to make sure that your response is clearly organized, that you have a thesis that is strong, clear, and specific, that you have paragraphs that are unified and cohesive, and that the introduction and conclusion meet expectations. And some of that is going to depend on the prompt. Your first prompt for your response paper, I gave you a really specific outline for what should be in the different paragraphs of the essay, and some of you needed more paragraphs to talk about those specific topics, but those introduction, conclusion, paragraphs, topics are going to change. You might be a little bit more on your own for some of the response papers, and other response papers, like the first one, I'll kind of tell you what I'm looking for in each paragraph. For style, I'm looking to see that you utilize a variety of sentence structures. You probably know from your composition classes that when we use the same type of sentence structures over and over again, it gets really boring to have to read something. And so I'm looking for a variety of sentence structures, and those variety of sentence structures also help to convey your ideas really well. I'm looking that you employ a good use of vocabulary. For this class, that means maybe throwing in some of that literary jargon that we talk about in those introductory chapters of the textbook. I'm also looking to see that you engage the reader with a clear and interesting voice. Now, in this class, that means definitely avoiding second person. We don't want to make any assumptions about our reader, and also trying to kind of think more about talking about the stories from this kind of detached, objective third person, because again, you're trying to make an argument to the reader about your interpretation of a specific story. So we want to make sure that anyone can kind of understand that, and that you're making the argument not based on like your personal emotions, but that you're making that argument based on textual support. And third person's going to help you do that. For mechanics, I'm looking to see if your paper is formatted in MLA format, that it meets those formatting guidelines, and that it is completely free of grammatical, mechanical, spelling, homonym, and other errors. Now, if you try your darndest, you're probably going to get pretty much full points there. But again, mechanics is really important, because if we have ideas, we want those ideas to be clear and in clear English so that our reader can understand those. Here's just a little refresher on MLA format. I'm going to move my video screen around here so you can see it. So a standard kind of MLA paper heading starts with the student's name, because it's your work. Then it's followed by the professor's name. If we were working in a situation where we had hard copies of papers, if things get lost, shuffled around, it's really nice to have the professor's name on there. I'm a little bit easier to find on campus than you are because I have a mailbox. But it also lets me know right at the beginning that this is an essay or a paper for my class and not just the wrong file that you accidentally uploaded. You also want to include the name of the course. We are Lit 210 section OOU, I think. And that appears on your Blackboard page. I teach a lot of different composition and literature courses, so it's really helpful for me to know that I'm looking at a paper for a specific class. And then we have the date, and the date is in day, month, year format because that gets rid of that extra comma in there. Up in that right-hand corner of the page, you will have your last name and then the page number. Notice too that in the middle here is the title for the assignment, and if you want to kind of give yourself a little bit of organizational ideas, you can always use a title that's like Response Paper 1, but then you should have kind of a fun one that gives your reader, again, the purpose of a title is to get your reader interested, so you want to give your reader an idea of what you're talking about to get them excited. Notice that this entire paper is double spaced. There are no extra spaces between paragraphs of the same style, and you should use one of the fonts that's pretty easy to read. Now, the rule for this is that you should choose a font where italics is easily distinguishable from the other non-formatted text. And so Times New Roman is really nice at this. Any of kind of the standard fonts like Arial or Calibri that your word processing program is going to have on there automatically are going to be really nice for this. But when they get kind of tough to read, then we don't want to use them. If this is all new information for you, there is a longer video on Blackboard under MLA resources from the Cincinnati State Writing Center that can give you some more insight and information about MLA formatting, why we use MLA formatting, and how to do it on a word processing program. I think they use Microsoft Word. So while you can use that rubric to really give yourself kind of a comprehensive overview and some specific specific general, some generalized areas where you might need some work. There are specific pieces in the text where I give you feedback. In the text. And this, again, I like this picture here. I'm going to cover it up with myself in a minute here, but it's an instructor speaking with a student. And if we were having in-class exchanges, we would be talking, we would be communicating, and so the InText feedback is really me kind of doing this critical reading of your essay. And when you critically read well, you should kind of be having a conversation with the text. And so it's me having a conversation with the text. And so the type of feedback I will give you, I have smiley faces in the comments bubbles. I have just kind of general comments, and sometimes I'll give you links. Now, when you first open up a document that I have graded and provided feedback on, it might be a little daunting. There is a lot of feedback because, again, this is one of the best ways that we have these conversations and exchanges of ideas to make them better. And so some students will look for smiley faces, and I use smiley faces when I'm having a conversation with your ideas. And so it's not that you've done anything that needs to be fixed. It might be that you did something that I really liked, that you did really well, like using textual support to support your ideas. But it's me kind of having a conversation. So I might be talking about elements of the story, or I might be saying, hey, like, that was really cool the way you used the colon here. So it's just me having a conversation. So students will sometimes look for the smiley faces to kind of see like, oh yeah, this is what I did really well, or this is kind of the conversation that Meredith is starting to have with my paper. Apart from the smiley faces, there are just kind of other comments, me usually having conversations with grammar, mechanics, style type stuff in your essay. Common comments include me asking, who is you? And that's me helping you try to avoid using second person. I'm asking you to identify who the you is in the context of your sentence. I also, and this is maybe a personal pet peeve, but hopefully it makes sense to you all too, I also want you to avoid using words like thing and stuff. Try to use more specific vocabulary there, and you'll find yourself kind of dealing more with ideas as you do that. You also want to avoid deadwood phrases. A lot of times those are things that are really polite conversationally and that we might see in our discussion boards, but aren't appropriate in actual response papers or essays. They're qualifiers like I think. And usually those deadwood phrases don't actually add any meaning to the sentence, and the sentence will make sense without them. So like I could say, I think vanilla ice cream is the best flavor. And then that would be really polite conversationally, but I could write a paper and say vanilla ice cream is the best flavor, and then I could explain, maybe I have the rest of the paper then to talk about maybe like why vanilla is the most exotic flavor. It's difficult to find and process, and hence making it the best. You might also see verses in between two words, and sometimes those are homophones like there and there, and you just kind of chose the wrong one. Or you might really be working with some of the literary jargon and just kind of not hit it exactly what they're talking about. When we talk about like an omniscient narrator, we're talking about this all-knowing narrator, and some people might switch it for omnipotent, which is all-powerful, right? So maybe you think you have an all-powerful narrator, but we don't in literature talk about the narrator that way. We would use omniscient. So when you see that verses, I'm asking you to kind of look up those words and choose which one is actually correct. On the first response paper, I also gave a lot of people feedback on their works cited pages. And remember, for response papers, for major essays, for your final exam, you're going to want to have works cited pages to give credit to the sources, to give credit to the stories that you're talking about. There will be a longer video talking about how to create a works cited page and looking at some examples of works cited citations specifically for this class. Apart from those comments written by me, you will also see links to Purdue University's online writing lab and the Writing Center at UNC Chapel Hill. Those are our style manuals for this course. We don't have physical style manuals. We have electronic style manuals, and so I will point you to specific links in there. The OWL is really great because I might give you a link to just general commas, and then you can get really in depth with how commas work if that's something you need work on. So you might just be directed to a link from one of our style manuals. Again, it can be a lot of feedback. I try to kind of break it down. You get a general sense of your essay from the rubric, and then you get specific feedback in the comments, as well as ways to kind of fix some of the grammar mechanics errors that you're making through those links to our style manuals. But feel free to ask me questions if something's unclear, or if you want to know how to improve. I'll probably direct you to that rubric and say, you know, like your paper was fine, like you had all of the elements, it was just really unorganized, so let's work on that, and here's some links to do that. So feel free to ask me questions. This is how you learn. This is how we exchange ideas in this class. If your grades just aren't where you want them to be and your interactions and exchanges with me aren't helping, you can always get more help from the Cincinnati State Writing Center. The Writing Center works through Starfish. You make a Collaborate appointment with a Writing Center tutor at a time that works for you. They even have Saturday appointments, so if you're really tight with your school and work schedule during the week, you can make Saturday appointments. There are two options. You can choose just the Writing Center, or if you are a non-native English speaker, you can choose the English as a second language support center from the Writing Center. They're a really great resource, and they're here to help. They're going to help you fix those essays. Remember, you're not in this alone. We're here to help. Talk to me, talk to the Writing Center. Let's talk about some literature.